Hello, everybody. Can you believe we are almost into the third week of this year? It is hard to believe, isn't it? I'm Kay Crystal Griffith, and welcome to Emotions, Wisdom, and Your Body. We are back for another riveting explanation of how emotions are affecting our body. So not just from the brain part, but also from our emotion part, also from how we can counteract it. And really, loneliness, which is our topic of the day, is one that has been hitting very hard in the last year, especially between quarantine and having to keep our distance from our families and so many holiday plans that were canceled. So let's talk about loneliness today. So here is your disclaimer. I am not a doctor. I do not play one on TV or any social media platform. I am here for edification, education, and encouragement. And trust me, you will always get a dose of encouragement, every emotion that we talk about. So let's talk about loneliness. Have you ever felt lonely, even in a crowd of people? Me too. Sadness because maybe you have no friends or company. Perhaps it's the quality of being remote, isolated, which is what many people are feeling right now. Loneliness is that state of being alone and feeling sad. It's the feeling of sadness, of anxiety that occurs when you do want company. But on the other hand, it is possible to feel lonely in a crowd of people. And especially if you aren't interacting with others. And so a lot of us, because we've had to live in the digital age now, we think we are connected. We see our friend list and go, well, I have 600 friends. Do you really? Do you have somebody that you can actually pick up the phone and call and talk to? Do you want to pick up the phone and call and talk to them? Or would you rather text them? That's kind of a sign of isolation. Okay, we should talk about that. All right, so loneliness can be normal. And the only indicator of the underlying disease is when feelings become excessive. So can you have too much loneliness? Yes, you can. And that becomes all consuming. And it's almost as if we are preferring to be alone and we don't want to interact with other people. We're going to talk about that in just a second, because that's what we're really beginning to see as people are beginning to really come out of the quarantine and interact more. They're realizing they don't want to. And so there's a real issue there. So being alone and being lonely are two different things. So one can be alone without being lonely, and one can be lonely in a crowded room. So loneliness, therefore, is really a state of mind, an emotion brought on by feelings and separation from other human beings. So can this be negative or positive? Sounds pretty negative, doesn't it? But yet, there are some positive qualities, just like we found in a couple of our other surprising emotions. So let's talk about the body effects. Loneliness has a number of risk factors, especially for chronic health conditions. For those who sit and smoke and eat, this is not a good combination at all. Loneliness tends to increase your levels of cortisol, which we've talked about before, and that's your stress hormone. And that can pose more serious mental health problems, such as depression and anxiety, if that cortisol level stays high. Loneliness can also trigger inflammation. Now, this is a pretty big deal, because if you have inflammation in your body, that means there's a clog in how your white blood cells need to get to the parts of your body in a faster, quicker way to be able to service areas of your body that may have infection in it. So inflammation, think of it as kind of a massive amount of cotton in the way of trying to get to the other side. UCLA conducted a study in 2007 that examined how genes are expressed differently in people who feel lonely, includes those genes involved with inflammation. And that is your body's way of defending itself. Inflammation is. It responds with that cortisol and higher level of cortisol from the fight, flight, freeze, or faint. So the more active that gene is, correlates to how lonely a person can be as well. So if you think about this from a logical perspective, you have some older people who have been sitting at home. They haven't been getting out. They have had to be in their homes. I'm going to not quite use the word trapped, but it certainly probably feels like that to them. Either they can't get out, they're not mobile on their own, or they've been told to stay at home for fear of what they could get, right? So now you have them sitting at home in their chairs doing what? Smoking, eating, drinking, watching TV, binge watching. They're not connecting with anybody because they're typically not the technology driven generation. So now how much Wheel of Fortune can one person watch? And now guess what happens? Your body's sedentary and the inflammation kicks in from a stress point of view. And now their legs and their hips and their stomachs are getting bigger and bigger, not just from the eating, but the inflammation that is now accumulating in their body. You see the cumulative effect of this isolation issue, of the loneliness issue? This is a real issue, folks, that we have got to pay attention to. We are going into a generation of baby boomers, and they've already hit that level, and they're staying home more already just by very nature of the beast, of how old they are and how they don't have as much energy as they used to. And now we are compiling and really creating a system within their bodies that is really speeding up this premature death piece. So let's talk about that in just 1 second. Those who report greater loneliness have also perceived social situations as more threatening. And this piece is for our teenagers. And so I am actually seeing this in my own home. I suggested to my kiddo that she go to actually a club meeting on our campus, since we were already going to be there for a very special meeting that we had to have with one of her teachers. And she at first jumped on the idea, oh, I get to see my friends. And then by the time we got there, she's like, yeah, I don't want to go. And I'm like, okay, why? And she goes, well, one, it's that whole mask thing. And you know, that causes a lot of anxiety, but I don't really know how to interact with them anymore. That was a really surprising conversation. And this is real, that we need to focus and understand the mental health effects of this quarantine, folks. And I don't usually get this serious, but this is a serious issue. We're affecting not just the bookends of our generations, the older and the younger. I mean, this is not even to say that there was an article today that I read that our elementary, we have an entire generation that will never have had an in face-to-face play date. That's where we're heading. I can't fathom that my kid would not have grown up having play dates. But that's where we are. And so how do we move through this loneliness piece, this isolation piece that's very real in our world right now, and not have the effects that I'm about to share with you? So if we're seriously contemplating loneliness with social isolation, we're looking at a 32% increase for a risk of stroke, a 29% increase for a risk of coronary heart disease. So those numbers are going to increase. And this is even outside of whether or not you have the virus that we're really kind of talking about here. But we're talking about just the risk of from loneliness, from isolation, and then the anxiety increases greatly. So if that anxiety is increasing, we know that's already increasing your heart rate. It's already increasing your blood pumping. It's already increasing the stress on your heart. So it makes sense to have these numbers. So Psychology Today shares lonely individuals report higher levels of perceived stress when exposed to the same stressors as non-lonely people, even when they're relaxing. We got some issues, folks. So lastly, I want to talk about one other group, and this is really pertinent to today. The quarantine isolation that is being induced upon the nursing homes, hospitals, and even our homes. And I'm not here to dismiss science. I would love to see more actual science than the numbers that seem to change every day. But we really need to contemplate this piece. A Donovan study conducted looked at community dwelling older adults, found that those with higher levels of a protein called amyloid reported a lack of companionship. So what they're saying is, with that lack of companionship, there is this higher level of protein within their brains called amyloid. And guess what that level of protein is actually? That's actually an accumulation. That's the underlying cause of Alzheimer's. So this isolation, this loneliness is actually increasing this protein in the brain that is the underlying cause of Alzheimer's. Folks, where are we going to be in 3 to 5 years if we continue with the quarantine and the isolation and the lack of companionship, a lack of physical touch? We are going to be in a world of hurt, folks. We have got to put our heads together and we have got to find out a way to walk through this together and find breakthrough and understanding and companionship and connection. Okay, so I am not here to tell you a shot or no shot is the answer. I am just saying, here's what we're dealing with. And we need to still find ways to solve those problems, because whether you take a shot or not does not stop this issue. Okay, and so we really got to pay attention to this one. Loneliness can also, increase your risk of premature death. Physical social isolation leads to a 30% increase in premature death. So it's also, that would be the exact reason why you have these couples who have been married for so long. I mean, we're talking 60, 70, almost 75 years. I think the latest one I read was a couple had been married 84 years. That's crazy. Holy moly, 84 years. And, one passes away and within hours, the other one does. And that's because of that companionship. That's because of that connectiveness. Now, what then are the positive natures of loneliness? Because all I've told you is the negative, right? Which has not been good. So what's the positive? The positive is being alone does give us the power to self-regulate. It teaches us to adjust our lives. How much have you learned about yourself, your family, your kids over this quarantine, right? How much have you learned what really is important and what isn't? How much have you learned how to reconnect? That has been huge for our families. And so many of our kiddos have learned this difference between virtual learning and school learning. And there has been a larger group of kids that have actually done extremely well from virtual learning. Do you know why? Because they don't have all the distractions in the classroom. They can focus on their work, get it done, and be done. It's been amazing for some of these kids. Other kids, not so much. They are just not the virtual learners, and that's okay too. But how do we service them? How do we walk through this all together so everybody can thrive, right? Okay, being alone also teaches us the strength and ability to meet our needs. When we have to be on our own, and this is true of way too many deployments that I had to deal with, right? I had to pull out of myself a lot of strength, abilities, talents, gifts I didn't even know existed, because I was the only one there handling it all while he was off doing what he needed to do for our country. So I just want to encourage you. You have a lot of hidden talents and potentials in you that you did not know you had. And so sometimes when we can get by ourselves, we can find out what they are. So how do we combat loneliness? The fact is, it does exist. It's not going anywhere. And at some given time in your life, you're going to have some. And so how do we combat it? So first of all, we have to become aware of our feelings. You have to acknowledge them. Remember our old saying, feelings buried alive never die? That's what we're talking about. We have to acknowledge that they exist so we can take accountability for them and we can walk through them. Then we have to understand those health impacts that we talked about. So no smoking, no getting a bag of the orange things that everybody could eat and then have orange fingers on. I got to tell you, my little vice were those little Debbie cakes that we used to have, the oatmeal pies. Yeah, my mom couldn't keep those in the house. They would disappear. It was bad. We can't have those in our house. All right. But what about exercise? I recently joined this organization. I'm not getting paid by them, but I think they're a great organization. It's called 99 Walks. And I did it with my bestie and I said, hey, let's do this for Christmas for each other. And it'll just get us walking a little more. She already walks. She does the marathon thing, but she loves me. And so she did it with me. And so from there, we set a goal. Whatever your goal is for the month, it could be 1 mile. It doesn't matter what the goal is. Okay. That's not the idea. You're not supposed to be in comparison with other people. The idea is you set your goal. And then if you meet your goal, you get a beautiful little bangle. Here's mine. This is from November. And November said, this was December's. Leave a little sparkle. And so you now have a token of meeting your goal, which is a great reminder, right? It's a visual reminder you met your goal. Now, guess what? You have authority over that goal. That's a good thing. So I want to encourage you, go there. They're super cheap. Excuse me. They're super cheap per month. And honestly, the amount per month covers us. So, but what I have found is each month I have upped my goal to whatever I ended up doing the month before. And so each month I progressively gotten to more miles. Now, am I walking a marathon? Nope, but I'm over half a marathon. So that's a good thing. And that's more than I used to do. I also find that I'm getting out on purpose. I'm walking my neighborhood more. I'm saying hello to people. And a couple of them have actually started walking as well, which is kind of neat. So just remember, your smile can actually bring a smile to other people. Your actions can instigate other people's actions in a good way. And so get out, walk around the block, if nothing else. Get a little vitamin D. That does wonders for your brain alone. Now, also get more sleep. Sleep is one of the most important things that you can do for your body. When you sleep, your brain detoxes your entire body and it kind of takes out the garbage, if you will. And so every night you got to take out that garbage. And so if you're not, you just get that accumulation of toxins. And guess what else? Inflammation. Yep. So now we have a bad combination, right? You're not getting sleep, you're building up inflammation. And what did we just talk about with inflammation? That's a bad combination for loneliness as well. So it affects the serotonin in your brain. So we have to make sure we're getting good sleep. Now, the other thing is work on creating a social connection, real connection, not the digital kind. I'm telling you, those 600 friends that you got on Facebook, I get it, but really pick up the phone, have a conversation, not the text, have a conversation. Do drive-bys. Like one of the fun things that we did this summer, somebody had a birthday, we decorated the car, we made a little sign, and we were the first in line ready to go and surprise birthday parade them. And I think they had like 27 cars show up, which is so awesome. And we all got to take a hello and say hello from the car. And it was lovely to be able to support each other and wish everybody a happy birthday. So work on real connection, even if it's car to car. And I did that with my friend who happened to come into town and we were right smack in the middle of COVID. So we came up to both our cars and we both like our chai teas. So we both had our chai tea and we were drinking our chai tea, window to window, and we got to see each other. And so that was better than nothing, right? So I just want to encourage you guys, figure out ways to make connection. Focus on the quality, not the quantity of the connection as well. All right. Now, your last idea is one I am not saying flippantly because I realize it's a huge responsibility, but perhaps consider a pet. My daughter's probably going to find this video and replay it about 1 million times for me now because I keep saying, I don't want any more animals. I raised too many animals. I'm done. Right? But I'm seeing the value, and that value of connection and with the loneliness and the social isolation. And here we are, and now we have to look at a service dog. But, it is something to really consider that could really bring value to someone's life who is in social isolation. So food for thought. Now, what are our wisdom verses? Now I can't even talk anymore. Wisdom verses. Psalm 68:6. God sets the lonely into families. And those families are not always what we think families are. One of the groups that I'm a part of that it truly is what I call my tribe. We have very like-mindedness and understanding who God is and how God works and the miracles that he evolves and offers everybody. And then the prophetic words that he gives. And it's just such an amazing group of people. And I feel at home there because we get it. Like we can say something and that person gets it immediately, right? And you don't often find that quickly. And this is a group of people that you can. If I feel like I could call on any one of them and go, I need prayer, and they will be on it. And there's not even a question in there. So I just want to encourage you. Family doesn't always necessarily look like the one who had you or the one around you. Now, that's not to dismiss them. There's a lot to be said for families. Had a great conversation with my dad today, and just, having a good conversation and asking where mom was and how she was doing. And I just want to encourage you, think outside the box. Okay. Now, Psalm 25, 16-20. Turn to me and be gracious to me, for I am lonely and afflicted. The troubles of my heart are enlarged, and bring me out of my distresses. Consider my affliction and my trouble, and forgive all my sins. For I take refuge in you. Right? So if we can bring our troubles, our loneliness, our pain to him, he's going to take us out of it. We just have to bring it to him. And his shoulders are big enough to take it. Try it. I'm just telling you, test the theory. You'll be surprised. Now, John 16:32. Behold, the hour is coming. Indeed, it has come when you will be scattered, each to his home. Isn't that interesting? And will leave me alone. But yet, I am not alone. The Father is with me. You're never alone. Never. He loves you so much. He is not the Father who is going to create you and abandon you. He has been with you every step of the way, even if you didn't know it, even if you didn't acknowledge it, even if you didn't receive it. He's been there the whole time. Ask him. Ask him where he was. Pick a date in your mind, a thought in your mind, a memory in your mind, and ask the Lord where he was in that memory. I'm telling you, he'll answer you. It's going to be pretty amazing. Love to hear what those stories are. Now, how do we use this new information about loneliness? I don't want you guys to get bogged down in all those numbers that I gave you today. I want you guys to realize that God has a plan and he can use the loneliness as well. So I heard a story this week that I wanted to share with you. And this particular gentleman had gone on this whirlwind tour. He was a speaker and he came back to the hotel. And that afternoon, he was supposed to go and meet a friend he had not seen in 6 years. 6 years. Long time, right? And it would probably be another year or two before he could see him again. And so he woke up, he was going to go to this meeting, and he was like, I don't want to go to the meeting. He couldn't tell you why. He just felt like he needed to stay at the hotel. So his wife was going off to do something, and he called his friend and goes, hey, I love you. I can't meet with you today. I can't even tell you why. I just can't meet with you today. And, when you have those conversations with the people who truly walk in like-mindedness, they get it. His friend said, no problem. Totally get it. I'm disappointed. Totally get it. Let me know what's going on. And so this particular gentleman telling the story stayed at the hotel. And about 2 hours later, he felt like he was supposed to get his laptop out. At that point, he had just been chilling. Got his laptop out. And in that moment of obedience, the Lord began to download a whole strategy for his business. And he wouldn't have been able to receive that if he hadn't been alone. If he had been in the middle of that meeting with his friend, or if he'd gone out with his wife, or if he'd done any number of those things. So I'm just encouraging you. God is going to use every single thing that happens in your life. Romans 8:28. God works all things to his good and glory. So I want to encourage you, even in the loneliness, God can use it. So ask him, Lord, I'm feeling lonely. What are we doing with this? And listen. So here are your 3 questions to use your wisdom to understand it and apply it. How has loneliness been showing up in your life? Has it been negative or has it been positive? How can you transform loneliness by wisdom and understanding and knowledge as you walk forward in it in the future? So take your scriptures. Remember, add your name. God sets crystal in families. What's your name? Put that in there, right? Now, don't worry. I'll post all this in your chats. Make sure you go live. I really would love to hear how God's using loneliness in your life. What have you heard? What have you learned? What in here kind of spoke to you? Now, tomorrow's word is intimacy. Intimacy. It is the connective opposite of loneliness. Let's see what God's got to share with us tomorrow. So join us tomorrow on Emotions, Wisdom, and Your Body. Register at kcrystalgriffith.com to receive more insights and your feelings wheel. Can't wait to connect with you guys tomorrow. Have a blessed day.